You put the suit on and it's suddenly, it kind of transports, people look at you and it kind of transports them back to being children again in a strange sort of way. And people get out of your way, and like there's definitely an intimidation factor to it.
When I heard it was for the Penguin, I just got very giddy. I got very giddy.
You probably don't have Batman without having his villains or rogues gallery, and I loved the feeling that you maybe would not have the Riddler without Batman.
Hi, I'm Matt Reeves, and welcome to Entertainment Weekly's Around the Table. We're here to talk about The Batman. I'm here with the cast and Dylan Clark, producer. Let's begin.
Fear is a tool. But when that light hits the sky, it's not just a call. It's a warning.
When you're doing a Batman movie, you have to baseline do the things I think that people are expecting in a Batman movie. So I knew that there would be a Batmobile chase, I knew there'd be spectacle, I knew there'd be the fights, but I think the thing that I was really interested in was seeing an early days Batman that was, that was really in the world's greatest detective mode, and that there would be a case, and that the case would then draw Batman into, while it wasn't an origin tale for him, it would bring us into the origins of all of these other rogues gallery characters, that as he was going on this case, it would lead to all of these iconic characters that people know, but to try and do it in a version where you had never quite seen them in this way before, where in many ways it was them in their origins. So you might see Selina Kyle, but she wasn't yet Catwoman. And you would see Penguin, but he wasn't yet the Kingpin. And you would see a version of Falcone. And then, of course, there would be a version where, for the first time ever, there is a character who's beginning to call himself, who's declaring himself the Riddler, and he's the serial killer. And then there'd be a partnership in the solving of this, which would really be, I think that to me was a really fresh sort of angle too, which would be that you would have Batman and Gordon essentially as partners solving this crime. And so I felt like that was really the intent, was to find a way into the world everyone knew, but in a way that you had never seen.
I've been trying to reach you. Find the gun! This is about a king, and Riddler's the match.
I can take care of myself.
If this continues, it won't be long before you've nothing left.
I don't care what happens to me.
It's only gonna get worse for you.
When you think about Bruce Wayne, you kind of think he's a playboy, and then that's how he disguises himself that's why no one knows he's his Batman. As soon as you take that away, it made the character kind of almost make more sense. I mean, there's something about a person who would be able to delineate three incredibly distinct character types within their own life, well, personalities, and then just be able to switch them like an outfit at will. I mean, that's really way more sociopathic than someone who doesn't really have that much control over it and is compelled to put this suit on, and it's kind of out of his control a little bit. And also it made more sense with the grieving process as well. I mean, if he hasn't gotten over being the 10-year-old boy who he, in his mind, let his parents die, what he feels is Bruce, what he feels is himself, he thinks is a incredibly weak, vulnerable child, and he needs to have an entirely different alter ego just to survive himself, let alone fight all the criminals of Gotham. You put the suit on and it's suddenly, it kind of transports, people look at you and it kind of transports them back to being children again in a strange sort of way. And people get out of your way, and like there's definitely an intimidation factor to it. But I think also there's just, the first time I put it on, I mean, you can feel the kind of 80 years of all the different writers and artists and actors and directors. Everybody's put so much kind of love and passion into it, and you really feel it when you put it on, and it's always a bit of a shock when you look in the mirror.
Whoa, take it easy, sweetheart. Hear everything they say, ain't you?
Maybe we're not so different. Who are you under there?
I don't think we've ever had an opportunity to really understand who Selina is and where she comes from and why she is the way she is. And I think, oftentimes in these kinds of films, the female characters are one-dimensional or kind of there just to serve sex appeal. And I was really impressed and excited by what Matt had written in the script. Seeing a tortured person who's really trying to liberate herself from a lot of trauma, and even the idea of understanding her connection with these cats, her feeling like a stray herself and taking in these strays, it's really exciting, I think, to understand even her connection to cats in a deeper way.
I think I was more attracted just about being a part of the mythology of this world, you know, and having had a relationship with the world of Batman, going back to Adam West's TV show. And then the Tim Burton films were very important to me when I was a teenager, and then up to Chris Nolan stuff. I just got very excited as a fan of film. And I think I approach any jobs that I've done in my life kind of from that perspective as a fan. But then when I heard it was for the Penguin, I just got very giddy. But I was also a bit short-sighted. I spoke with Matt, and Matt's intentions with the character were very clear, and certain relationships that Oz in this film at the beginning of his career, or not the very beginning, but you know, certainly not the kingpin that he becomes, but that it was all very grounded. And I was kind of struggling in how to access the character or what I could bring to it until I saw Mike Marino's design. As soon as I saw, Matt said, we were sitting in Matt's office, and he said, "Do you want to see what Mike Marino's working on, how you're going to look?" And I said, "Yeah." And he showed me his laptop, and I saw the bust that Mike Marino was designing in his workshop. And I was blown away, and I was moved by the brilliance of it. And also, you know, anytime I see a picture of Willie Nelson or Jessica Tandy, I wish I could pencil sketch, you know, because some people's faces just have such a clear kind of access to what you could perceive their life has been. Every little line obviously represents a story or an event, a smile or a grimace. And so Oz's face that Mike Marino designed was so extraordinary, and there was so much history and so much pain and so much violence just on that face alone, that when I saw what he had done, it kind of jump-started my excitement, or took my excitement, what was already there, to the next level. So yeah, I was thrilled to be a part of it. Yeah.
It was never the plan to put Colin in that extensive amount of prosthetics. What happened was, you know, Mike and I were talking a lot about the idea, and I was talking to Colin about the idea of like characters that were sort of inspirational in terms of it being sort of the gangster side of it, that he's in this sort of mob world and that he's kind of underestimated. He's sort of, in certain ways, he's a little bit of Fredo, in certain ways, just the way that he's sort of struggling in this place to sort of become more. But of course, in this case, he has the weight to become more. And so really what we're talking about is, okay, so let's just talk about a detail, maybe his nose and some sort of thing. And then Mike started sculpting. And we talked about all these references. I talked about Bob Hoskins and all the, you know, this idea of them being like a Warner Brothers kind of gangster character almost in a way. And he came back with the drawing, with the bust that he had sculpted. He's an incredible sculptor. I saw that and I was so shocked. And I said, okay, so wait, I just want to be clear about one thing. Like, I want this to be Colin. And so I need to get Colin's essences. I don't want to see someone who's wearing all this makeup and I can't get a sense of their performance. And that is the genius of what Mike does, which is that not only does he sculpt this incredible sort of visage and do all this incredible makeup, but it's the key parts of Colin that come through, that he leaves naked, that you can see. You can't see where the seams are, but Colin was able to perform so seamlessly through that makeup that you get, you know, so much of his essence is what Colin is, but he's also transformed it. It was very odd. I felt that the experience of making the movie was very strange for me in terms of my relationship with Colin, because, you know, we spent time at the beginning, but then I really got to know this character and the way that Colin embodied that character. On the last day, I had to give Colin a hug because I was like, wait, I know I'm not going to see you this way again. It was so amazing to have that experience.
I got you! I got you!
One of the things that I loved about Matt's script was the sense of morality. I think a lot of, quote, superhero films deal in a very black and white language without a lot of gray, and most of them are protecting a status quo. And that's really being challenged here. You know, you probably don't have Batman without having his villains or rogues gallery. And I loved the feeling that you maybe would not have the Riddler without Batman. And I think their relationship, and even the relationship of what the mask is offering them, and what somebody like Edward is getting from the Batman's presence, and what the Batman then potentially learns from that, I thought was really complex and deep and emotional and thematic. So I thought that relationship was thrilling.
I went back to the Frank Miller comics, and those are obviously influenced by The Godfather. And The Godfather was obviously influenced by a lot of real gangsters. And some of those gangsters imitated the gangsters from the 1930s Warner Brothers films and all the film noir films that followed. So, there's all kinds of flattery in the imitation of each other. I just thought, you're sort of the man behind the curtain and the person who has lived this subterranean life and controlling, the entire city. And there are lots of people who are real, predators, and they are able to figure out someone's vulnerability and then offer their services as a benefactor, and then they, own them. And so I thought there was a lot of nuance to it. Matt was really encouraging to explore that, and I got to do that with Robert and with Zoe, and I found it really, really interesting to do.
Just speaking about Gotham, the character in this film was, I think I can speak for all of us, incredibly informative of what I did. The tone that was set by our production designer, James Chinland, and by Greg Fraser was incredible. So much information being delivered that we were, existing, yes, in this once grand, beautiful city that was decayed and falling apart and wet and sooty and dense. I don't know if that's necessarily the city outside these windows. We're here in New York. Obviously, Gotham was fashioned after New York City back in 1939 by Bill Finger and Bob Kane, and I think Matt brilliantly has crafted a Gotham for the 21st century. When I saw the film, I was struck by the idea that our Gotham is very much in some ways like our America now. I think that's for many reasons. There's this vein of mistrust. There's this sense that institutions are wobbly within this Gotham, and I think that's relevant. I think that's exciting. What's exciting about Batman, the character, is that he lives in a city. He lives in a major, fantastical but American city, and so to the extent that our film reflects the contemporary, I just think is appropriate in whatever ways it does, and that again is a testament to the sharp pen or the sharp keyboard of Mr. Matt Reeves.
From your secret friend. Underneath the bridge. Who? Topper sprung a leak, and the animals I've trapped. Haven't a clue. All become my pet. Let's play a game, just me and you. Any of this mean anything to you?
I was interested in the humanity of these characters, right? I mean, there's something very mythic and iconic about them, but I think what I was interested in was the underbelly of who they were and how, the grays. And so this idea that he was a billionaire, that gave him the resources, but the point is he was born into that. So this was something that he's not even aware of. And I think that his relationship to the other characters, like especially to Selina and also to Riddler, like they're all orphans. They share the same thing, and yet he is not, I think, even aware of the kind of leg up that he has. Even to do what he does, he's able to do it because he happens to be privileged with all of the resources that he has. And he's initially judging Selina because he's assuming that because of the world she's in, she must be morally corrupt. And he's seeing everything in sort of white and black and not really understanding the gray area of that. And actually, he ends up being completely wrong about her. He doesn't understand really what her motivations are. They're just as pure as his, but actually they come from a similar place, but she hasn't had any of the advantages that he's had. So I felt that was relevant to the character. I wanted the character to have an awakening. I wanted this story to force him to confront whether or not the way in which he was doing what Batman is sort of classically known to be doing, which is fighting with vengeance for this city. Is that the way to do it? And does he really sort of understand his place in this city? So in that sense, I guess as that relates to current events and the way we are in the world, those things did kind of align. But I wanted the world to feel like our world, but specifically that character had that aspect to it that is part of the Batman myth.
Mr. Wayne, you really could be doing more for this city. Your family has a history of philanthropy, but as far as I can tell, you're not doing anything. If I'm elected, I want to change that. Thank you. My God. I'm gonna go pay my respects. Will you wait for me? I want to continue this.
I think Matt, as a lover of film and a student of film, he's watching, great filmmakers all the time. But really, Matt's true talent, he has so many talents, but the thing that he does that's just exceptional is, as a writer-director, he gets into a cinematic world through character and emotion and theme, and he builds that world inside out so that it becomes, wholly distinct and unique. And I think there's certain things that, in a Kurosawa movie that might move Matt, and he'll remember a shot and go, God, I really want to try that shot. But really, what it boils down to is that everything is coming through character. Everything is about landing an emotion for the audience. And, there was that thing that, when we started talking about this, it's been 80 years of Batman. There's been all these great Batmen before us with great directors, and Matt just wanted to, we had to find a way to do this thing uniquely and differently, and it was all in what he wrote on the page. And the thing that I've had the luxury of making 3 movies with Matt, his scripts are like storyboards. And I think all these actors got to see all of his intentions on the page, the way he was going to not only shoot it, but edit it. So there's inspirations in there, certainly, but I think they get kind of caught up along the way in the creations that Matt is delivering.
You're becoming quite a celebrity. Why is he writing to you?
If you are justice, please do not lie. What is the price for your blind eye?
Michael's score for this movie, I just have to say, I think is incredible. First of all, this is the 5th movie that Michael and I have done together, and he's such a special artist. He has a love for these characters. He's one of the first people that I called, and I said, okay, so guess what? We're doing Batman. He was like, okay, I want to do something different this time, because he felt like, look, there have been great Batman movies and great Batman themes, and people sing them in their head, they know what they are, and he was like, I want to write this music before you ever shoot anything. And so I talked to him a lot about what the movie's about. I shared pages with him, but he wrote this beautiful suite. And I remember specifically the day that Rob was going, you have to do a screen test when you do Batman. And I was like, even though I knew there was no question it was Rob, he had to come in here to put on a bat suit so the studio could see what he would look like. And you put on the old bat suit, which is this crazy moment. So he had, which one did you have on, Rob? Was it Clooney?
It was Clooney's, yeah.
Okay, so he had Clooney's suit on, which has nipples.
Thank you, Joel Schumacher. I just want to throw it in.
Yes, exactly. And then Dylan comes up, and Dylan's about to go in, and I said, no, come here, get in the car. And he gets in the car, and he goes, well, what are we doing? And I said, just listen. And Michael had sent me the MP4 the night before, and it was the music that you hear in the movie, this beautiful theme. And we listened to it, and we were both like, it's one of those moments where you have to pinch yourself. You feel like you're suddenly in this moment, this sort of lineage of time. You're going, wow, that's the Batman theme for this movie. And it's something that I ended up, it was incredible to have, because I played it for Rob. I remember, and Rob was asking for all kinds of stuff that was like reference, and he was doing all his own research, but I was like, oh, let me just give you everything that I've been having as I've been writing. And I remember Rob saying to me that one of the most helpful things was Michael's music, in terms of just that, the sense of melancholy of Bruce Wayne and all of that. And we talked, as far as Nirvana goes, that was something that in the writing was a tone that I write to music. And so sometimes I write to Michael's music, and I just put on Nirvana, and there was something about that that said to me, this iteration of Bruce Wayne, for some reason. I thought about how Kurt Cobain sort of had this uneasy relationship with fame, I think. Like, he loved music, but the idea of people knowing him as Kurt Cobain, I think, probably made him uncomfortable, and that suddenly, like a light bulb, I thought of Bruce Wayne, instead of being the playboy who was kind of, driving around the Maserati as that disguise, that he hadn't yet figured out how to marshal that into one of his disguises yet, and that instead he would be somebody like a member of the Kennedy clan, or like, somebody who was part of the British Royals who had lived through a tragedy and then just had this weight of the Wayne name on him, and he just wanted to retreat from it and hide and jam, his jamming was being Batman in the night, but he, as far as Bruce Wayne, that he needed to hide from that. So that music was an inspiration for me, and then we just kind of sort of built that into the movie.
I'm vengeance.
Whoa! This guy's crazy!
This has been Entertainment Weekly's Around the Table with the Batman. Check out our movie March 4th.